and welcome back finally to a fresh, brand spanking new episode of the Pretty Passionate Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ruth, and man, it is good to be sitting in front of this mic because it's been a minute. It's been a beat. I had to take a serious hiatus for the last few months because I had some major changes that I think I underestimated the difficulty of. You know how you just think you can do everything, or is it just me? Yeah. Guilty of thinking I can do everything syndrome. I did not adequately prepare for how this major change that happened at the beginning of March was going to impact my ability to do everything. So, major news for me is that now I am working in two cities and it's quite a change. Joined an amazing practice with some folks I really admire that was going to let me have the opportunity to do a lot more of the insurance focused work that I really love to do in plastic surgery, but absolutely have always struggled as a solo private practitioner to deal with. So I was pleased to join the Row Plastic Surgery team. They needed someone to cover Palm Beach, and they're also expanding into Atlanta. So the timing of this opportunity could not have been better. And of course, change comes with its many growing pains. And I won't list them here because I'm dedicated to focusing on the positive, which is that I've always wanted to have a multi city, hell, even multi country practice. So that's always been a dream of mine. That was something my husband had to remind me of when I expressed doubt about whether this opportunity was for me. And I'm just pleased to say, so far, so good. So I got a place in Palm Beach. So we've got our apartment here, and then we have our home in Atlanta where the kids are. And so I am back and forth. They are staying put for now. And we're just going to, very unCapricorn like of me, ride the wave of life and see where it takes us. For the very first time, for the very first time in my entire life and career, I am not having the next 10 years mapped out of what exactly I think is going to happen. I have a sketch. I can't get away from that. I'm a planner. I have an idea for what I would like to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. And the truth is, do we ever really know? You know what I mean? What's the saying? Man plans, God laughs. Like, do we ever actually know with 100% certainty, despite our best laid plans, that what we have written out or on our vision board is exactly going to work out? No, we don't know. And so this period of time in my life has challenged me to loosen the reins a little bit because I am a white knuckler. Control is my pacifier. I like to feel like I have control over everything. But if anything, I have learned sometimes the hard way in my 45 years on this rock that control is an illusion. You never have complete control over anything in life. You can have all your ducks in a row and walk out of the house and get hit by a bus. Not to be morbid, like God forbid. But the point is that life can be really random. I'm leaning into the side of me that is being more open to the possibilities rather than holding on to a rigid framework of what I thought my career was going to look like. So I'm on this new adventure and I'll keep you posted. So far, it's great. I mean, the weather was definitely an upgrade in March from even Georgia, just come down to these tropical coastal weather. It was like beautiful. And, we're right on the water. And the office that I'm at is on the island of Palm Beach. It doesn't get any more beautiful than that, to be honest with you. That place is literally a postcard if you've never been. I had spent some time in South Florida, obviously Miami and West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale and stuff like that. But I hadn't really spent a lot of time in actual Palm Beach. So that's been a beautiful experience. I've met some lovely people. One of my best friends is, she's not a snowbird. She's too young for that, I guess. But, she lives between New York and Fort Lauderdale. And I was talking to her about my experience meeting people here. And I was like, why is everybody so nice? 'Cause my experience has just been people have been so overwhelmingly nice and welcoming and, oh, where do you live? And giving me restaurant recommendations and everything. And I moved at a time when it was still like season. In season is a term people use around here a lot because there's like a hot season, like a weather hot season, where it's not so comfy and cozy to be in Florida. If you have someplace else to be, like mostly in the north, then that's probably where a lot of the social calendar will be popping in Connecticut, in New York, and like in the Hamptons, stuff like that. Whereas in the colder months, basically fall through winter, it is much, much nicer to be in Florida weather. So, but my friend who spends time between Fort Lauderdale and New York, her theory is like, because I was like, it's the same people from New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut. It's the same people that you encounter up there that you're meeting down here, except here everybody's so friendly and talks to strangers and smiles at strangers, and it's really nice. And it's unexpected to meet so many northern transplants who are so friendly. She said, it's the weather. The weather just makes everyone nicer. And I think that theory is actually accurate because so many people are former Northerners. New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania are the most popular or the most common that I run into. You know, some of them have been here 5 years, some of them 25 years. It doesn't, it varies widely, but good times, good weather, great parties, amazing parties. I have definitely met some amazing people, some amazing talent, celebrities by attending a lot of charity events and things just on behalf of the practice, sort of representing the practice name and getting out there myself, trying to meet people and, network. And it's been fantastic. I have received thus far a warm welcome to the Palm Beach County community at large. And I'm happy to be here. It's really fun and exciting. I'm doing something new. The kids have been down. They really love it here. They love the apartment. They think it's so wonderful because, of course, there's a pool and like all the amenities, which they really enjoy. And, where we live in the country in Georgia on acreage and kind of set back from city life. And it's nice because, we're like 40 minutes from downtown Atlanta. So we can obviously go whenever we want, or take an Uber or whenever we want to enjoy some city life. But for the most part, our kids are living country life, going down to the creek, digging up goodness knows what, getting covered in mud on the weekends. And so for them, it's really exciting whenever they get to be around like skyscrapers or big apartment buildings like they were doing in West Palm Beach. So when they were out here just walking around the city streets, they were enjoying walking out of the apartment building and just right into the downtown West Palm Beach. We took a trip down to the town of Lake Worth Beach, and they were able to see some people do some really fun fishing. They were able to like walk out onto these massive piers and be standing over the ocean. And that was really fun for them. That was the first time. I mean, they're little, so they haven't done that much in life. So they really enjoy the coastal aspect of this because we're landlocked in Atlanta. So they don't get to see like shoreline ocean, like ocean sunsets and feel ocean breeze and see palm trees. So all of that is always like vacation stuff that we get to do. When we go on trips to the beach, when we get a beach house with my family, things like that, or when we went to Jamaica. This is different because it's like we have a home here. So they're sort of excited about that. And my husband is pleased to live anywhere so long as it is below the Mason-Dixon line. Because he's a North Carolina boy. He gave New York a try. He gave it a try, and I will be honest with you, New York could have been nicer to him. He definitely gave it the college try when he was working up there when we met, actually, and his experience there was not the most positive as far as like, just property rights and parking and vandalism of your car. Like literally got the mirrors stolen off his truck like 3 times. I'm like the same guy must have come back after the first time. I was like, oh, thanks for replacing it, homie. And took the mirrors like another 2 times. But anyway, so yeah, he's good to live anywhere as long as it's like in the South where, you can have a home and land and space and a garage and all those things. And even though West Palm Beach, where at least where I live, is very city, it still has a very readily accessible suburban area and places to not feel like you're living in a big city. He loves it too. So obviously, I just spent a lot of time catching you guys up with what's been going on with me. And I definitely want to apologize that even in my last episode, I didn't prep you for my absence. I was under a delusion that I would just pop over here, unpack, and set up my little podcasting space. I don't know why I thought it would just be so quick for me. I use movers like most grown-ups, right? Like, gosh, oof, I hate moving. I mean, yes, when the kids come, then yes, obviously I will move. But when I tell you I hate moving, I abhor it because the disorganization, it's very triggering for me as someone who thrives in organization and neat workspaces. I mean, probably a better woman could have recovered faster than me and really set things up. But as soon as I hit the ground running here, I was also attending events like multiple times a week, and event season was still running strong. And it's not until the last 2 weeks that I've not had two major social events per week at minimum. There were times that I was going to two events in one day, and it was great because, again, networking, meeting amazing people, a reason to dress up. Need I go on? But it didn't leave any time for me to set up a little studio and all that stuff. Had everything here in boxes, but again, so I can sincerely apologize for the hiatus. I hope that you continue the journey along with me. In the time that I've had off, I've definitely given some thought to the content that I've been putting out and what changes, if any, I want to make. One of the things I definitely want to do more, or at least more consistently, is talk about pop culture related plastic surgery stuff. I think that I touch on it sometimes, but sometimes when we're doing recaps, that gets overshadowed. But boy, these episodes be getting long. I am very optimistic that that will be my last hiatus for a very long time. And if I do have vacations, trips, or anything like that planned, I'll definitely let you guys know so you know what to expect. But thank you to those of you who hung in. To those of you who are new to the pod, welcome, welcome, welcome. Consider these episodes your little group chat with friends, a glass of wine nearby if you are so inclined. And we're going to just catch up on stuff, our shows, movies, entertainment, the other interests that I have. I'm a plastic surgeon, so things like plastic surgery and the zeitgeist, beauty, fashion, all game. Also, if you are so inclined and want to see like what I have been up to during event season, I tried to do a really good job of posting about most of the things that I was doing or where I was going on my Instagram page. That's at Pretty Prescription on Instagram if you want to check that out. Okay. We've got some amazing things coming up, sequels and whatnot. And then we've got some reality TV stuff. I haven't really covered much in the way of reality TV because, one, I wasn't really sure if you guys are into that. A lot of you who joined me was around the time that I was covering a lot of scripted television and movies. And so I don't know how many of you are crossover as fans into reality TV, but I have been watching more reality TV lately. So I may talk about some of that stuff, some of the highlights, not every single thing. I don't think anybody's getting away from some of the drama in the Bravo sphere. I've always been a fan of many of their shows. We're smack dab in the middle, or actually 2 episodes away from the end of The Testaments. Can you believe it? Not sure if you're watching The Testaments, but if you are not, briefly I'll explain it as the follow up to Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale. So, The Handmaid's Tale on Hulu was adapted from a novel written by Margaret Atwood. The Testaments is the follow up to that book, and it also covers the journey of the daughter of the main protagonist from The Handmaid's Tale, June Osborne. So, she has a daughter whose story unfolds in the Testaments. And I have to tell you, wow, wow, wow. Hulu, chef's kiss. Okay. I know there are a lot of you who I've spoken with personally in my social circle who, for one reason or another, could not stomach The Handmaid's Tale. There was some gore. There was definitely some grit to The Handmaid's Tale. There were some things that were hard to watch. I think intentionally so. I think The Handmaid's Tale was trying to send a message, and the message was loud and clear. It was definitely a pro-feminist, anti-fascist message. I think you would have to be a dodo bird to miss it or say that someone is being political to just call that out. And Margaret Atwood, the very author of the book, has been very forthcoming herself with saying that she wrote The Handmaid's Tale and the Testaments as a warning, basically, to, I guess, give people an understanding of how quickly democracies can devolve into autocracies. And it's compelling storytelling. If you just take the warning and the, dire political messaging out of it, it's still just ridiculously good storytelling about what happens if America devolves into a really, really, really strict, fundamental, kind of crazy theocracy. And so the Testament's picking up where The Handmaid's Tale left off. I have been blown away by these episodes so far. There's one airing tomorrow and then the finale. I mean, we can do a wrap up. You send me comments, questions, thoughts on the Testaments. But so far, I just wanted to share a few thoughts for those of you who are watching. I apologize. I should have denoted that there will be some spoilers for Handmaid's Tale as I discuss the Testaments. So if you didn't watch The Handmaid's Tale, but you are watching The Testaments, I guess it doesn't matter. But if you didn't watch The Handmaid's Tale and you want to wait until it's all aired to go back and watch it all as just like maybe one long continuous series, I apologize for there will be Handmaid's Tale spoilers throughout. Okay. So for those people who wanted to peace out, catch, the show notes will show you where you can come back into the conversation. So, on wow, with the lead. The lead actress, Chase Infinity, she plays June's daughter, Hannah. If you remember from The Handmaid's Tale, that was her original name. In the Testaments and when she was taken away from June and her husband, she was renamed. In the Testaments, we're going by her given name from her mother and father. Her adoptive, I mean, adoption is a weird word because they really did just like steal the child, but from her adoptive parents, the Mackenzies, and they named her Agnes. So I'm going to call her Agnes for any references I make to her, just to keep it from being too confusing. But we catch up with Agnes. She's a teenager now. And if for those of you who finished The Handmaid's Tale, there was concern on June's part that, Agnes was going from being a pink, meaning like a child, allowed to be a child, obviously still being schooled in the ways of Gilead. And then at some point, when they get older, when they start to near puberty or begin to have puberty development, they turn into purples, which denotes the color that they wear, or plums. And they start wearing the plum clothes and they start being kind of trained to be Gilead wives. And in this school, this strict school, we learn that Lydia, that cockroach, is basically the headmaster of the school. And so she survived all that stuff that happened at the end of The Handmaid's Tale. She made her way out of it. So Agnes is a plum. We're following her story with that of some girlfriends that she's got in her same grade. And it kind of just opens with letting us know the most important thing in these girls' life is that they are getting prepped to get married. And the most important thing when you are a married woman in Gilead, when you become a green, like you wear the green clothes, is that you could pop out some babies. There's nothing more important in Gilead. That is a woman's like essential mandate. And keep in mind, if you're wondering, like I was, like, well, so we're not relying on handmaids anymore? No. And this makes perfect sense because I thought about it. I was like, so they're not using the handmaids to make the babies anymore. Why? Well, because if you would recall from the end of Handmaid's Tale, we started to see some hints of fertility among some of the greens, like Serena Joy, who got pregnant naturally. Some question whether that was her husband's baby. I don't think it was, but either way, she got pregnant. So the sterility problem, whether or not it was her husband's issue or both of theirs, it looked like basically some of the cleanup and the removal of toxicity and going organic and all the strict clean living that Gilead was forcing upon its people was paying off in some way and leading to a return of fertility even in that generation. So now the plums, these rising plums, these are all the kids who are, some of them were born in, but actually all of these kids are pretty much old enough to have been maybe babies or toddlers or, maybe like just born at the start of Gilead. So this is really like a living experiment for Gilead right now to see, okay, how is this going to work for us to make like from scratch Gilead wives, Gilead women, and these young women are getting a return of their signs of returns of fertility with their menstrual cycle. So it's a huge deal if these girls get a menstrual cycle. There's a whole ceremony. And of course, in the style of Bruce Miller, I mean, just when I say artful and beautiful, that's the thing about Gilead. Gosh, it's this horrible place where horrible, unspeakable things happen to women and men. But then there are these moments, and I guess this is part of it. They just make it so beautiful, They make it gorgeous. There's flowers, it's colorful, and there's so much symmetry in the way that, I mean, I'm not sure who the DP is for like this first batch of episodes, but like even announcing fertility, announcing a period, there's this, I think it's like is it a triangular structure? There's a structure that the girl who has newly received her cycle gathers in after ringing a bell, and everybody joins around her, and there's this little ceremony that goes on, and it's shot from overhead. And the shrubbery and the flowers built into this overhead scene, I mean, it's stunning. Like, if you were an alien looking at Gilead from Earth, obviously you'd have to overlook some hanging bodies as you drive through the city. But once you get past that, the beauty, the landscaping, the flowers, I love gardening. So like Gilead be catching my eye. I'm like, Blessed be the fruit, because I mean, these plants are healthy. No, I don't wanna live in Gilead, but I'm just making the point that I think that they're doing such a beautiful job, just like they did in The Handmaid's Tale, of juxtaposing the physical beauty of the physical buildings and spaces in Gilead, the homes in Gilead, they're just so beautiful, so well kept. They are juxtaposing that with the horror that is the regime that runs the place and how they treat people and how people are punished for stepping outside of the line. One of the main stories besides the girls getting their cycles and thus becoming eligible to marry and who they're going to marry and who they're going to end up with and if they're going to end up with some colony commander, which is like a terrible fate. One of the other main stories is that Agnes is being molested by her best friend's father. It's like it's giving Larry Nasser vibes, the town dentist, who also happens to be the father of her best friend, Becca. There's some debate online. I definitely picked up on chatter of people thinking, oh, that Becca has definitely been victim to her dad as well. My jury is still out on that, but important to note that these are girls who are being taught that like you are not to interact with men, you're not even to like know men exist and acknowledge their existence or anything. And if you cause a man to sin, like you see how that's phrased, like if a man does something inappropriate, the automatic assumption is, well, how did she tempt him? What did she do to bring this upon herself? So it's a sad and sick reality that these girls literally, if they are assaulted, if they are attacked and touched inappropriately, they have no recourse just because they are women in the society that tells you that even if a man does step out of line and assaults you, touches you, does something inappropriate. There was someone at the beginning of um, I think in the very first episode or the second episode of the series, who was being punished for self pleasure, and they punished him by cutting off his hand. And in the midst of that punishment, saying that he was masturbating, they actually then turned around and blamed the girls and said, well, also shame on you for tempting him by being girls and being seen and being visible, that you caused him to sin this way. So that mindset floating around and being a part of who they are since probably toddlerhood at latest, it does something to you. And she's in that situation being assaulted, she didn't know what to do. So she sits with this for a long time in terror and has to see him again. And he knocks her out completely with nitrous. And definitely she knows he's assaulted her again because her undershirt is like put together sloppily. So she knows that he's been in there helping himself. It's freaking gross. I just hope, oh gosh, I hope there's a gallows in this man's future, honestly. It's like, I hope there's a gallows in his future. I know that's harsh, but I don't care. I have children. So I hope there's a gallows in this character's future because there should be, if Gilead was or the righteous place that it claims to be. But we'll see how justice is meted out for Dr. Grove. And the other part, speaking of Becca, the other main storyline is that Becca doesn't want to get married. And we get vibes from her early on. She doesn't want to get married. Agnes is her best friend. They're not really allowed to have best friends. Best friendship is really strongly discouraged to the point of actual punishment if they catch you trying to be besties with anyone. So this little circle of friends, these girls, they try to cover for each other and not let the aunts know that they have these special bonds. But Agnes and Becca have a special friendship that they still nurture between them, and they sneak off moments to talk to each other. And then at some point it becomes obvious that Becca is in love with Agnes. So it's sucks for her because she's going to go through this marriage process. She got her period just like some of the other girls, and they're going to put her on the market to marry some commander. And, all we can think about is it's going to be some old dude because they don't care about the age of these girls. They're 16, 17, somewhere in that range. And they're marrying them off to these gray haired commanders. At one point in the story, Agnes makes a comment about how, up until that point in the story, they were basically considered children. And then they have this it's like a prom that they go to, but it's nothing like prom we experienced, where the girls get dressed up and they're being put on display for the commanders as prospective wives. And she talks about how they're children up until a certain point, and then their adolescence pretty much happens in just this one night. And it's kind of like a weird, effed up adolescence in which old men are considering you as a marriage partner. And then, sorry, it's just gross. And then after that, then they have the whole courtship process with the the men who are interested in marrying you. So they go to your house, they do home visits. And in some houses, the girls get a choice in who they can marry. And in most houses, they do not. It's a decision that's going to be made by the parents. And I mean, in this respect, I guess I can't really pin this only on Gilead. This is an arranged marriage tradition that the family has a lot of say so and is going to, of course, most families who care about their child and they don't want the child to go and be miserable, but they're also much, much, much more heavily considering the family interests in the match, right? And how advantageous a match would be for their social standing, for their consolidation of power and stuff like that. So I guess not unusual in human history. And so, okay, there's that. Also, Agnes is in love with her guardian. Totally reminds us of who her mama, June Osborne, who was also fell in love with her guardian, Nick, and that is Nicole's daddy, if you recall. There was a big to do about the fact that there's another character named Daisy in the story in the Hulu version. And this is a big diversion for book readers. I didn't read the books. I'm gonna go back and read them because once I started The Handmaid's Tale, I was like, I can't go back and then read the Testaments and then watch the TV show and enjoy it. But that's just me. I have either have to have had. But anyway, those people, the book faithfuls, revealed that Daisy, the character Daisy, is actually Nicole. It's actually June's daughter Nicole infiltrating Gilead for the purpose of getting a hold of Agnes before obviously this horrific marriage can happen. I try to keep myself like la 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 about anything else regarding the book because I really don't want to be spoiled on what's going to happen in subsequent seasons. So uh, I don't know much else about the book plot related to that, but that's the basic framework of it. But the showrunner and creator Bruce Miller was explicit in saying that in the show version, because they had to do a lot of aging up and adjustments to make the story flow a certain way and not have to have these weird, inexplicable like time jumps and stuff happen, they have removed the Nicole aspect of the Daisy story. So, although Daisy has ties to and knows June from Canada, June is a part of her escape story when Gilead attacks her family and she learns that she was adopted and she was rescued from Gilead by her parents, and her parents are no longer alive, nor are her adopted parents in that moment. And June kind of brings her into the Mayday fold. So they have a bond of sorts. She's not Nicole, in case you didn't catch that. So that said, Daisy gets into the school with a similar objective, I'm sure, from Mayday to one, glean as much intel as you can to help the movement. And I'm sure the underlying agenda is for her to get close to Agnes or somehow make it possible to get Agnes out there. I can't imagine that June herself put Daisy in with Mayday and in with Gilead at her request to take down the people who killed her adoptive parents, and that getting access to Agnes and saving Agnes was not like top of mind as part of her mission and her probably stated goals, right? So Daisy's awesome. We get a glimpse at how she grew up. We get a glimpse at what her life was like pre Gilead, and she's what they call a pearl girl, which means she is a convert. They have people out in the streets proselytizing. These are other pearl girls, other converts who are going out in the streets and doing outreach. They're doing like homeless youth outreach, giving food, shelter, and just basic kindness, to teens and kids who are just sitting around on the street lost, trying to recruit them into Gilead, and they're trying to sell them on the virtues of a life in Gilead. And I won't linger on this too long, but one thing that was really interesting in their approach was that Daisy was like, "Yeah, I hear that like women get treated like crap in Gilead," and the girl's response was like, "Okay," she's like, "And are they respected and revered here?" And Daisy didn't have an answer for that because the truth is, even in free society, right, in Toronto, like, can we say that women are treated well? Not really. Can we say that right now in modern day free America? No, we cannot say that women are treated like equal citizens in the eyes of everyone and that we are equally protected under the law and that we get equal pay for equal work and that our contributions to society are valued in history and retrospectively the same way that men's are. No, we cannot say those things and be telling the truth. So I thought it was an interesting kind of thing to shoot back at Daisy, like, oh, you're quick to criticize Gilead for barbarism toward women and all these things, but from her perspective, women are revered. they are put on a pedestal because they are the carriers of life and all this stuff. And obviously, she leaves out all the horrific crap involved in the reproduction and the, the assaultiness of the reproductive process. But it was an interesting point she made. Anyway, so Daisy is in. She's assigned to Agnes, and Agnes is supposed to show her the ropes and teach her how to be a perfect little Gilead girl. Along the way, they form a really strong friendship that I think is going to bear some important fruit in the next couple of episodes. They've learned to trust each other, and Pearl girls have a rep. They're kind of low and like ignored, kind of like seen, not heard in most of Gilead society. So I feel like Daisy is well positioned to really wreck shit. You know what I'm saying? And I'm looking forward to it. In the last episode, Agnes finally confides in Daisy that she and one other girl, Hulda, have been molested by Dr. Grove, the dentist. And Daisy has a look on her face that is so reminiscent of June Osborne. I swear. I was like, they cast this girl so well to resemble June in terms of facial expressions and facial acting. I feel like anybody cast on The Handmaid's Tale, they are like, your face acting got to be like on point. You got to be able to convey so much emotion with just like a side glance, because it is a society in which so much can't be said out loud. And so you need someone who can convey thought, emotion, feeling with just a glance. So amazing. I'm telling you, like Chase Infinity is killing this role. Anyway, Chase Infinity is killing the role. And what's the name of the girl? Let me look this up real quick. The name of the girl who plays Daisy. Daisy from the Testaments. Yeah. Lucy Halliday. Yeah. Lucy Halliday and Chase Infinity. I mean, their scenes are just all the actors. All the actors. I have no acting notes. I'm not an actor, first of all. So where would I be coming from with that? But just all the actors are doing such a phenomenal job, man. Like even Hulda, the actress that plays Hulda this past episode, learning that she went to the dentist, because that's something they do whenever you get your period. You got to go to the dentist, you got to get all these treatments and basically make yourself more attractive to potential suitors. So she went to see Dr. Grove to get some dental work, and he did something to Hulda that is even worse than what he did to Agnes, because Agnes, he groped her, and then the worst of what he did, he put her to sleep for her. But Hulda, he forced her to touch him inappropriately awake, like took her hand. And anyway, the point is, he got some comeuppance coming. And I am looking forward to him getting the Fred Waterford treatment, if you will, if you're familiar. Just a literal stomp out in the woods and just finish him. Or I don't know, whatever they want. But I'm really like, I really said to myself that I will be disappointed this season if we don't get to see Dr. Grove get any kind of justice meted out. So we'll see what happens, because Daisy had this look on her face and I was like, we got 2 more episodes. Come on, Daisy. But yeah, but still, we have to accept in our heads, Daisy is not Nicole. Daisy is not blood related to June Osborne. Okay. Other notables, this character named Shunammite, so much depth. That's what I love about these shows, and about just like a good show does not have black and white characters, doesn't have people who are all good or people who are all bad. It has complex characters who make decisions, and you get to know them and get to understand over time why they make the decisions they make, even if they make horrific decisions. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I love about this show. I can't say enough good things about it. That was kind of like a summary of the season so far. I didn't include everything. It's not a complete recap. But what I'm saying is I'm giving this a full throated endorsement. Like, what a show. Now that's TV. Sometimes I do like enjoy my brain rot, and I do enjoy television shows that don't require me to think really hard, like stuff in the 90-day series I can just pop into and fold laundry, that kind of thing. Real Housewives stuff. I like to sometimes watch when I'm trying to force myself to exercise. I'll like, okay, you can watch this if you get on this treadmill for 30 minutes kind of thing. But this kind of TV, this kind of scripted television is just so amazing. So highly recommended. And if you are into it, please shoot me an email, prettyprescription17@gmail.com. I want to hear your thoughts on the season so far. I'm obsessed. Again, I'm so worried about these girls. I look at Lydia and I still can't figure her out. That's how well this character is played. Like, can't figure her out. What is her story? Is she made it? That crossed my mind at one point. But then I'm like, no. But what is she? What's she doing? She's so complex. Aunt Vidala, what's her story? Something in my gut is like, I think she's Mayday, or she's something. I don't know, but I can't figure her out. But I don't think she's a true Gilead believer, if you know what I mean. Let's see, who else? We talked about Shunammite. Should might mention that her brother was taken on the Night of Tears, by the way, which we call Angel Flight. When June rescued all those children out of Gilead, the Gilead people call it the Night of Tears. I thought that was fascinating. Agnes is betrothed to a commander, Commander Wharton, is it? And interestingly, when we were flashing back in Daisy's pre-Gilead life and she was learning about all the commanders and all the people in Gilead, we got to see that he has some info in his little personnel folder, information that implies that he has a little bit of history with women, maybe some domestic violence stuff, and that he's not a good guy. He's not a good guy. He's putting on a good guy act right now, I think, to get Agnes in his corner during the whole engagement and wedding planning process. We gotta save Agnes from this marriage. I'm just saying. Oh, other people. Oh, we learned something so fascinating about the Guardian. What's his name? I keep wanting to call him Nick. Garth. Garth Chapin is actually the son of a really, really high ranking commander who was very vital to Gilead, I guess, not being completely overrun during the Battle of Boston when June and her people wrecked shop on Gilead that day. He's still alive, but he's basically like a vegetable because he was poisoned. And interestingly, his son is Mayday, like working undercover in Gilead as a guardian and about to be promoted to commander and fully committed to taking Gilead all the way down. In fact, he told Daisy, there is no getting out. We don't get out until Gilead is down. Like, he's a fascinating person who we just peeled another layer to his onion to learn more about him. And I can't wait to see how things unfold to him because, of note, he is engaged to Becca. How's that for a love triangle? Becca is in love with Agnes. Agnes is in love, I think it's puppy love, with Garth. Garth and Becca are engaged. I'm telling you, 2 more episodes is not enough. Obviously, there's going to be more and more seasons. Bruce Miller hasn't said exactly how many, but I think a lot of people are speculating 4 seasons or so. I don't want them to go on and on and on. I don't need it to be a 22 season thing to get the point, but I do hope we get 4 good seasons because it sounds like there's enough meat on that bone to give us lots to talk about. So, Testaments, email me, comment, let me know that you're watching and that you want to talk about the last 2 episodes in detail, and we will do that. Okay. Other things. I saw the Michael Jackson movie. I know it's been out for a while now, but can I tell you, I cried grown tears in that movie theater because they make you feel things. I mean, as an 80s baby myself, an elder millennial, I lived through all of that Michael Jackson mania. You know, I was a child, young adolescent when he was at the peak of his fame. And so I had the Thriller poster in my bedroom. You know, I was one of those people who like wanted my mom to buy me that red leather jacket from Thriller. That was not happening. And that white glove, like, I mean, icon. And his nephew, Jafar, I can't stand that name, but Jafar is doing a tremendous job playing his uncle. It's like he has been possessed by him. You can tell that some of the vocals have been blended in the movie to bring in that authenticity and so he can hit certain notes, but he's singing. He's singing in that movie. He's dancing in that movie. And you can't take it away from him. Michael Jackson is not an easily replicated artist. The man was a singular talent that will never be repeated on earth. We'll never see anything like him. We'll never see anything like him. I remember as an adult, I think I was in late college, so I was an adult. I saw him perform at Madison Square Garden live with his brothers. And I remember, I was a fan at the time, but it was, he was past his major, major prime, right, of being on everybody's mind and on every chart topper. But, when the Jackson 5 is about to come out and perform, you want to perform, you want to go see it. So my boyfriend at the time, he was a real big concert guy. So he surprised me with tickets and we went to go see this show at Madison Square Garden, and Britney Spears joined him on stage to do The Way You Make Me Feel. Like, the brothers were up there, and then Michael, because like they did their Jackson 5 thing, and then Michael had his own set. And so Britney Spears joined him for that. And there just came a point, the magic that you feel with this music that this man made. There came a point in the performance where everyone was screaming so hard and we were so like thrilled by everything that was going on, and he was putting on such a good show. Such a good show. And you just couldn't believe that you were with your not through a screen, that you're, with your naked eyes looking at this legend and seeing something legendary happen. I mean, everything he did was like legendary, iconic. Like, at one point, I was like singing and shouting and screaming so much that I actually got lightheaded. Now, I did not pass out. I wasn't one of them stretcher people. Okay. So let's keep that clear. But I was laughing at the time because I was like, all this time I used to watch Michael Jackson stuff on TV and see these people being carted off in stretchers, passing out and stuff. And I'd be like, well, how the heck what is wrong with you? It's just like, what are you passing out? He's not God. He's just a person. It's not that. It's that you are not taking in enough oxygen because of your excitement. You're screaming and hollering and hooting and jumping and, just singing along so much that you are like underventilating. And so people can, and then they're sweating, it's hot, so they can create conditions in which it's understandable that people would pass out. And in that concert, people did indeed pass out. So the man got on a stage, they had paramedics standing by, period. And that did not change even in the early aughts. So yeah, that. And then the only other time I ever saw him on stage live, but he did not perform, was I was actually in the front row at Summer Jam. And Jay-Z brought him on stage because Jay-Z's like, because I have that kind of clout, I guess now. Like, I don't know, Michael Jackson was there. Who knows why he was at Summer Jam, which was, one would have thought that was beneath him. It's a very hip hop crowd, and Michael was never not black, right? But hip hop wasn't his, at least that we knew, right? So we were all stunned for Jay-Z to be performing and then for him to be like, it's the king of pop, everybody. And we were like, what? What's he talking about? And Michael Jackson comes kind of strolling out on the stage, one hand in the pocket, very shy, very like, hey guys. And we were like freaking out. Of course. It was like, I have to look up the year, but this was a point in time when we did not have cameras on our phones. So if you did not have a real camera, and a lot of concert venues would not have let you in with like a big bulky camera. So you just had to enjoy it and move on and tell everybody about it, And I saw a few weeks ago, I saw someone posting about it on Instagram, and I was like, and they had a great shot where you could see part of the front row, and I was like looking for my boyfriend's hand at the time, like to see if you could see us in the shot. But I was like, man, that sucks that like, we didn't get to capture that. I mean, Michael Jackson was like a literal few feet away from me, and I didn't get a good, like just a picture of him. And I guess that's a regret, but then I have pictures in my brain. And I can also say that I wasn't taken out of the moment, kind of, fumbling to try and get my phone out and, capture it. But yeah, I highly recommend this movie. I'm so happy there's going to be more. And his nephew's doing a great job. Can't wait to see the others. Anyone who's saying like they should have cast someone else, I think you're on drugs. Your brain is fried. There's not another human being who could so easily embody the totality of personality, facial features, little vocal tics the way that he can. So that's just genetics because that's his very close blood relative. Okay. So go see it if you haven't. And I was gonna talk about this one thing. Okay. So remember I said I wanted to talk about more plastic surgery beauty topics. So this is something that's come across my computer screen a lot lately. I've gotten articles from friends sent to me, and I was like, okay, I guess this is something I should talk about on the podcast. There's a lot of hullabaloo, a lot of talk going around about zombie fat. Have you heard this term? Okay, this is a term that I saw in multiple articles. Zombie fat in The Guardian, I think was where I saw the term first used. And there was an article also in Business Insider, The New York Post. And all of these articles were talking about an emerging trend in plastic surgery where there's really two main companies that are doing it, where people are getting cadaver fat injected into their bodies for aesthetic reasons. So they're getting cadaver fat injected into their breasts, but there's also versions that are appropriate for the face. And the companies that are promoting these products tout minimally invasive in-office procedure, minimal pain, no downtime, none of that like fat protecting protocols and stuff that you have to do after you get your own fat transferred. And these products are hitting the market at a particularly interesting time because we are in the age of Ozempic. We're in the age of GLP-1s, which aren't going anywhere anytime soon. So we have a lot of people who have some loss of plumpness, but also are in a position where they don't have adequate fat stores in their own body now to do a traditional fat transfer, like a BBL, with which you might be familiar. So along comes products like Renuva, which is an FDA approved product. It's manufactured by MTF Biologics, which is a nonprofit company that is well known and well established for creating biologic implants for decades. And basically what they do is receive cadaver donors and process these tissues in such a way as to make them implantable into a human. So when it comes to the fat, what's the difference between, like, let's say if my sister was like, "Hey, I got some extra fat I'm going to let you put in your body." Well, her fat has her cells, has her DNA in it, and my body will immediately, because of all the little tags and markers all over her tissue, will recognize that as a foreign substance and will reject it and cause major problems if I were to inject that directly from one person to another. What these companies do is they process the fat in such a way as to clean it, remove DNA, and ultra process it to create more of a scaffolding with fat components. And what this is supposed to do is, when implanted into your body, stimulate collagen production, blood supply, and the fat that is injected to become vascularized or to get blood supply in those tissues in your body. It all sounds like crazy, but basically what it is, let's say ultra processed fat from another person, and it is donated in all cases, at least with the two companies that I know of, MTF's Renuva and Tiger Aesthetics Aloe Clay. They are very clear that the donors know 100% that the cadavers they are donating, the parts can be used for reconstructive and aesthetic grafting materials. I think that's a point that has come up a lot, is like, well, do these people know that they're giving their bodies up to, have let people have BBLs? Which, by the way, for the record, I would like to point out, you can Google this. There's not a ton in medicine besides, like, okay, stem cell research, obviously, but there's not a ton of other things that we are going to be doing with fat outside of some reconstructive edits, like breast reconstruction and stuff like that. There's not a lot that we're going to do with cadaver fat that all these people now who are using cadaver fat for aesthetic purposes are taking the resources or hogging the resources from. Do you know what I mean? So, in other words, some of this fat might not be used at all if it were not for companies like this that have found a new aesthetic application for these fat cells. The most popular things that are utilized in a cadaver body, besides like a full body dissection, like when we were in medical school, we got a full cadaver that had not been touched to dissect and learn anatomy on. And that person donated their body to science. And there was a lot of reverence around the whole thing. At least as far as I know, with companies like MTF, they treat these families with a lot of respect, and they treat the patient like patients, like in the sense that they're going to have a funeral service. They're going to have grief counseling for the family. It's not just like they just snatch the body and just run off and the family gets no recourse. There's a lot of consenting and counseling and all that before a donation is made. And a lot of what's used from cadavers is things like, cartilage, bone, skin for burn victims, eye components, and things like that. There isn't a lot that I can think of besides like wound healing and stem cells that is done with the fat, the bulk of fat that a person might have. So if you think of it that way, I mean, those people who are quick to say this is a waste of a donated cadaver's tissue, I don't think it is a waste. And the families are well informed. The person who's donating their body is often a part of the decision making process, and it's very clear that the usages are going to be both reconstructive and aesthetic. Okay. So there's that. The other question I get a lot of is like, is it safe? And the truth is that it's early days. So we don't have these massive, random, controlled, double blinded placebo studies where we can say, yes, this is studied for 5 years and this is the result, published in a peer reviewed journal. But there is a lot of clinical experience with alloclay. A lot of surgeons in like New York and other cities have been using this in aesthetic applications for over a year now. Like, we're going on a year and a half, and the results are pretty good. There's a high retention rate of the fat and not a high complication rate, no downtime, minimally invasive. All those things are holding true. We're able to learn from their clinical experience. So, no, it's not a product that's been around for 10 years, and we've got 10 years of data on what happens when the population at large is using this fat. So obviously take that information with a grain of salt if you're someone who's interested in this kind of procedure. That, yeah, we've got some good numbers. There's a good number of people doing it and a good number of people creating data for us as we speak. And the Renuva, which has indication for the face, is an FDA approved substance. The aloe clay, which is applied for the body, the breast, like rippling, cellulite, that kind of thing, is FDA cleared. which just means that it hasn't gone through that rigorous approval process because it's kind of piggybacking on some of the homework that was done on an earlier product, Renuva, that has a similar application. So it's cleared for use. So that should be of some comfort to people who are just calling this zombie fat and kind of like quick to criticize because it just freaks you out, the idea of cadaver parts. But understand that cadaver parts have long been used in reconstructive medicine. I have used cadaver skin in breast reconstruction. It's safe to say this is something that has a high market demand, not just because of Ozempic, but even prior to Ozempic, there were people who were too thin to donate their own fat in breast recon and even in aesthetic augmentations, breast augmentations, cellulite treatments, etc., for whom this is going to be a very welcome answer. Because I'll tell you one big advantage, if you're thinking, well, it's too new, why would I even be interested in this? One of the things that patients are most interested in when I counsel them about it is the fact that it doesn't dissolve, at least that we know, within that year, like some of the hyaluronic acid fillers, which of course, they stimulate collagen as well. So there's going to be a residual effect. But a year later, there's some strong reports of 90% retention, 75% retention on fat, which is not what you're going to see with a hyaluronic acid filler like the Juvederms and the Restylans of the world. So yeah. I guess the one advantage of why someone would consider this crazy thing for themselves would be the potential for more permanence in the long run for that correction, whatever it may be. Better indication for use in an area like the breast and the butt because you are using large volumes of filler in those areas. It is still very expensive because if you think about it, at the end of the day, they're still having to do an extremely labor intensive process of screening and processing to get this fat ready. So those vials of fat are very precious. So I won't say that it's cheaper than your own fat. So if you have your own fat, the less expensive and probably safer route because you're not getting tissue from somewhere else is to use your own fat. But for those people who this isn't an option, this is very comparable and possibly less expensive even than some of the HA filler options that have been presented for body contouring. I mentioned cellulite briefly. I want to be more specific about that. I don't think that you can go in and just inject cellulite divots with alliclay and fix them, but I do think that it is a fantastic option for releasing cellulite bands with a device called Ovally, which actually goes in and physically cuts the bands that cause the puckering in the skin and then injecting fat, interposing that fat so that the bands just don't reform basically over time is, I think, a great way to approach cellulite. There are not a lot of absolute winners when it comes to cellulite. There is no cream lotion that works at all. So please don't email me about creams. Those all have a temporary plumping effect on your skin, usually contains some kind of caffeine or something to plump your skin temporarily. So if you have a photo shoot and you need to make your cellulite look better, sure. But long-term results, very, very few things are effective. In my experience, in my hands, Avali was the most effective thing. And no, nobody is paying me. I wish one of these companies and somebody would pay me to say that their products are good. If it's a good product, I mean, I'm happy to say it. And that, that applies to a lipstick, an eyeliner, some cadaver fat. If you have a good product and it works and I enjoy using it, I don't mind saying that. So no, I have absolutely no skin in the game when it comes to promoting them, but it was an interesting discussion that I came across more than once. So I thought I would weigh in for those of you who are pretty passionate podcast listeners that you have maybe some interest in things in the world of beauty too. So let me know your thoughts about that. Those articles I mentioned, they were okay. They were a little biased. And I will say that I felt like they carried a little bit of a negative bias toward the procedure because it is new. And generally speaking, I recommend if you're looking to learn more about this, go to the ASPS website. The American Society of Plastic Surgeons has a good website about this kind of thing. If you want to learn more about this procedure and find surgeons near you who are board certified plastic surgeons that offer this procedure, that's what I'm always going to send you. Let's see. I think that, okay. Final thing that I wanted to briefly discuss with you, I'm not, but I won't go into detail now, is that I promised myself with the move, since I will have a little more free time certain weeknights on my hands that I would actually read a book, like a physical book, because I've been doing the Kindle and like the Apple, whatever the Apple app is, iBooks, I don't know, that you read books on and doing a lot of audiobooks and Audible and stuff. And I said, like, I'm going to read a physical books. My inaugural physical book reading was Brandy's memoir, Phases by Brandy Norwood, and I'm almost done with it. And I can say that it is a really good read. Like, it's definitely, I'm not going to say I couldn't put it down because I'm very disciplined when it's time to put the book down, but it's a great read. And when I tell you, having been a fan of Brandy's back in the day, but always having that media portrayal of her as kind of a perfect princess and kind of that image that she tried to uphold, that she and her mother tried to uphold of her to the point where she admittedly told the world that she was married when she wasn't to prevent herself from having to admit that she was having a child out of wedlock. I will say that book was so revealing. I had sympathy for her with some of the stuff she went through, like that motor vehicle accident that the world tried to blame her for, that she reveals so much truth in this book. Obviously, it's a memoir, so it's coming from her perspective, and I have always a healthy amount of skepticism about that when I'm reading this kind of book, but there's a lot said in there that even though it is, yes, just her viewpoint, it's the truth. Stuff about the music industry, stuff about Wanye Morris, stuff about the car accident that she was involved in, the stuff about just her career in general, the toll that it took on her. So much that she explores, and I don't want to give all of it away to where if you were interested in reading it, that you don't think you have to read it. I think you should still read it because even though I've just listed out so many things, there's still so much more. The one thing I will say that she doesn't touch on in great depth is her brother. I wasn't sure how she would handle Ray J because he's not in a great place right now. At least nothing I've seen of him lately indicates that he's in a great place. And I think she knows that. He's probably her closest friend. And I think stuff with siblings, you have to be careful about what you say about your siblings as a famous person on public record. And I think she understandably did not delve into some of the intricacies of their relationship to protect him, but I think more importantly to protect their relationship and not be on record saying negative things about her brother. You don't want to go on record saying, like, I think my brother has a problem with substances or whatever the case may be. I think she kind of just left that to speak for itself. But other than that, I was surprised at how forthcoming the book was, honestly, because I know her to be so notoriously guarded and limited with information. And in some cases, yes, fabricating to make herself look more pristine. I think she's moved on from that part of life. And it's a refreshing take on an icon. And when you really go back and parse out all the details of her life, her talent, her fame, and how her rise to fame, people she's worked with, the people that she got close to in the industry, the people who burned her, like, it's a fascinating tale. I've got a few pages. I think I have one chapter left, so that's why I feel like I can give a review and just say maybe that wasn't as briefly as I intended, but to just say it's a great read, and I'm sure the audio version is great if she's doing the voice because she just has one of those voices. Her voice is a quality, you know? As you may know, we saw them perform in December on the Boys Mind tour in New Orleans, my sisters and I. And I feel like having seen that performance, it ignited my interest in the book to learn more and kind of figure out, like, okay, because I know that they were supposedly feuding, but now I guess they're friends, or maybe they just decided to get that bag together. But she goes into all that, and it ignited my interest in the book. And I'm glad that I took the time to read it, and I'm glad that I took the time to learn more about this person who is sort of an age mate. She's a little bit older than me, but I watched her grow up on TV and watched her get kind of harsh treatment from the way that celebs were treated in the 90s and early 2000s, I'm glad that she's in a better place. So, good read. If you want to give her a couple of your coins, download the Audible version. I'm sure it will be very pleasant to hear. She's got that nice kind of raspy tone to her voice when she speaks. And now that is the end of new things I wanted to talk about with you. There's been so, so much. I mentioned that I will touch on some reality things, some reality TV things, because I am watching a couple things. For example, I've been swept up in the Summer House drama. It's so funny. One of my favorite podcasters was going to be covering Summer House, and I'd never watched it before at all. And this was before all the Wes and Amanda drama broke. I actually started watching the season, and then that drama broke, and I was like, oh my goodness. So it's been interesting. Other Bravo shows that I'm watching, Real Housewives of Rhode Island. What a circus. If you were kind of like, oh, the Real Housewives are boring now, like, understand, because Beverly Hills was a snooze fest this past season. I would definitely check out Rhode Island because it's giving early Jersey days in a good ways, and all the things that made Jersey really interesting in the beginning, like their close ties and how these people actually really know each other before the show, outside of the show, you know. So I think that's always, to me, that's always a little bit more interesting than when they just throw a group of women together that don't know each other at all. Let's see what else. Oh, Southern Hospitality. I feel like that's the little engine that could, on Bravo. It's a show that I don't know how widely popular it is because I don't hear a lot of people podcasting about it, but it's interesting to me. And again, this is a group of people that it seems like they have a real relationship, so the stakes are real, and it's their interactions are very interesting on the show. The drama between them is real, it's not just BS made up for the cameras. And it's also like young people drama, so there's something kind of funny about it to me. I don't know, I find it entertaining because some of the stuff I just like roll my eyes and I'm like, oh, you're just so young. None of this will matter in 5 years because they're all in like their early 20s. But interestingly, and what I think got me hooked from the beginning is there is like they do deal with like real stuff. Like there's LGBTQ representation on the show for a few of the stars, and they don't just deal with it in a trite way. There's some real stories there that are interesting and compelling, and you really like want to know more about that person, their life, and sort of what their life is like in Charleston. And then they don't shy away from dealing with issues of race either, which is always fascinating to me as someone who grew up in the North. What like race relations in the South. I'm not saying racism didn't exist in the North, but I feel like it's a different ballgame when like actual chattel slavery happened here, So in a place like Charleston, that I think is still a majority white city, some of its black residents that live there, we see how some of that plays out in Southern Charm. And I feel like Southern Charm sees the race stuff and pushes away from it immediately. And everybody wants to scream, I'm not a racist. And that's kind of like how they deal with it. They're like not touching it with a 10-foot pole. I think back in 2020, they did some performative stuff or what I felt was kind of performative. But generally speaking, they don't get into it. But I feel like the kids on Southern Hospitality, they are invested in sorting out issues as it pertains to race in their relationships. And that's admirable. They're not just like labeling someone like, you're a racist and you're stupid and therefore I will have nothing to do with you. They really like are trying to come to terms. And I I have to say hats off. That's not something I had to deal with growing up, educating people all the time about race and feeling like I had to constantly re-educate my friends. But seeing them do it is interesting and raises important topics for discussion that I think even their generation can benefit from watching that play out on a TV screen. Okay, yeah. Now that is it. I've exhausted all the things. If anything I mentioned is of particular interest to you, like you're like, oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with Southern Hospitality, please do full recaps or anything like that. Let me know. Or if there is a show that I haven't mentioned or a movie or something or if there's a show that I haven't mentioned that you are obsessing over and really enjoying that you think I might enjoy and that we would enjoy discussing together, please let me know. prettyprescription17@gmail.com. I took some of y'all's suggestions to try to watch Industry. My jury's still out, but I don't know. I don't see what the big deal is. Anyway, prettyprescription17@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram at prettyprescription and also on Threads. I have been much more active on Threads recently. I kind of like get the point of it now, I didn't really see the point of it in a world where all the other social media exists, but I like Threads. It's a cool environment, lots of fun, at least the corner that I found myself in, and I hope the algorithm keeps me in. And then also, please don't forget to like and subscribe or follow the podcast wherever you're streaming this. We are also, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, they have a video option now. And as soon as I figure that out, we will be having video available both on YouTube and on Apple Podcasts, hopefully. If not, obviously, still the voice will be available on wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. And the video will be available on YouTube. be. So please share with a friend, comment, let me know the things, and we will talk next week. That's a fact. Love you so much. Thank you for listening. Bye.